Hello and welcome to part 2 of Don't Travel Empty, Beat the Broker podcast. And today we're looking at the new dynamic pricing system that we mentioned in the first podcast, which helps your conversion rate and equally as importantly as that, your profitability. Now in the new Don't Travel Empty dashboard, you've got lots of different functionalities and reports, etc. And here we've gone to vehicle utilisation hours. I'm using data from my own company, Marriott Chariots. We have 17 vehicles and a turnover of about 1.3 million with very good margins now based on what I'm about to show you. And this week here is the 14th of July to the 20th of July last year. A very busy week for us. We took just over £50,000 in total. And yet when you come to this chart, which is determining how much those vehicles are actually being used with paying passengers on board, you can see it's fantastically low, 6.5%. And yet in reality, in my mind and in our operations diary, we're flat out. We hired in third-party operators and other companies to help. And yet what this is telling us is that we've actually got quite a bit of availability. Okay, so that's great, that's brilliant, but it needs to be used in conjunction with the sales ledger. Okay, so I'll go to the sales ledger and I'll go to that same week in here and we'll look at the turnover and we'll look at what dynamic pricing actually means in practice. Okay, so we're looking at the 14th to the 20th of July. And remember, our vehicles were moving for 6.5% of the week. And yet in here we have quotes that we didn't convert of nearly 70,000, £38,500 worth of private hire. So on top of that, we need to add school runs, work for the field study centre that we run as well. And our conversion rate, we aim for 30%, so that's good with 36.17. Average cost per mile is brilliant, although that doesn't currently differentiate between different size vehicles. That's just an average, okay? So we're flat out, made lots of money that week, very happy indeed. However, dynamic pricing means that you get as many vehicles out of your yard as possible on a daily basis for as much money as possible. Makes perfect sense when you think about it. But in reality, it doesn't happen all the time. Now, this is the 16th, so it's a Tuesday of that super busy week I showed you a moment ago. With 17 vehicles, we had the school runs and the field study centre work, but in terms of private hire, we had one 16-seater job for £175. And yet we had £7,500 worth of quotes we hadn't converted. So dynamic pricing means that the system will look at how busy you are on any given day, and it will allocate a percentage profit to each vehicle depending on how many vehicles go out of the yard, with some caveats, i.e. you will have some regular customers who get discounted prices. You may have regular routes that are a set price. But for the average customer who comes to your website or comes to your company for a one-off job, and they might only book you once every 5 or 6 years, the aim is to get as much money out of them as possible without losing the job and have the vehicles going out of the yard rather than sitting in the yard. So every time a quote comes in now for Marriott Chariots, we come to this page and we look at how busy we are, and that affects our pricing. Now, we started this in January of last year, and let me just show you, sorry, May of last year, but let me show you January, and you'll see what an instant difference it made to us as a company. Okay, so this is January last year, and we had £28,000 worth of jobs, £47,000 worth of quotes nearly. Okay, if we fast forward then a year to January, we've got one vehicle less than we had in January 19, and our turnover shot up by £15,000 to £42,500. Okay, quotes are higher as well. Conversion rate is good, and that means we've got more vehicles out at a relatively quiet time of year, earning us more money. So dynamic pricing in the Don't Travel Empty system allows you to absolutely maximize the amount of money that you're charging for every single vehicle on every single trip, and getting as many vehicles out in every day as is humanly possible. Thank you for listening.